You won't need this, my sister Brittany smiled triumphantly, turning her phone screen toward me to show my wedding fund account balance, $0. I have a real relationship, and Connor deserves a proper wedding. You should be practical about your future, Megan. Our parents nodded in agreement from across the kitchen table, Mom adding, she's right, sweetheart. You're 32 and haven't brought anyone home in years. But why was my phone suddenly buzzing with a text that read, ready for dinner with my parents? The jet's waiting. Love you. Brittany's eyes locked onto my screen before I could flip it over. Who is Marcus Webb? The kitchen went silent. My father's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. My mother's face drained of color. And Brittany, my perfect, golden child sister who had just stolen $47,000 from my future, looked like someone had slapped her across the face. Because everyone in America knew who Marcus Webb was. Forbes had called him the most eligible bachelor in tech. Time had featured him on their cover twice. His company, Nexus Technologies, had revolutionized artificial intelligence and made him worth approximately $34 billion. He'd been on Brittany's vision board for 3 years, literally. She had a printout of his face pinned above her desk with the words future husband written in pink marker. And he was asking me about dinner with his parents. Megan. Brittany's voice had gone dangerously quiet. Why is Marcus Webb texting you? I picked up my phone, read the message again, and allowed myself exactly 5 seconds to enjoy the moment. Because he's my fiancé. We're getting married in June. I met Marcus at a laundromat in Brooklyn. Not at a tech conference. Not at a charity gala. Not through some exclusive dating app for millionaires. At a laundromat, at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, because his washing machine had broken and he wandered out of his brownstone looking for somewhere to clean his clothes. I didn't recognize him. In my defense, he was wearing sweatpants, a faded MIT hoodie, and glasses instead of contacts. He looked like any other exhausted 30-something trying to adult, not like a man whose net worth exceeded the GDP of some small countries. Is this machine broken? He'd asked, gesturing at the one I'd just abandoned. Yep. Makes a sound like a dying whale around minute 15. Try the one in the corner. He'd laughed, a real laugh, surprised and genuine, and something in my chest had flickered. We talked for 2 hours while our clothes tumbled dry. About everything and nothing. About his frustration with a project at work. He said he worked in tech, which I assumed meant he was a developer or something. About my job as a veterinary technician and the 3-legged cat I'd just helped rescue. About our favorite books, our worst dates, our dreams for the future. He asked for my number before we left. I gave it to him, not expecting anything. He called the next day. And the day after that. And every day for the next 3 months. I didn't find out who he really was until our 4th date, when a photographer jumped out from behind a parked car and started snapping pictures. Marcus had grabbed my hand, pulled me into a nearby restaurant, and confessed everything in a rushed whisper while the maitre d' escorted us to a private room. I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry. You looked at me like I was normal. Like I was just some guy. I haven't had that in years. I didn't want to lose it. I'd stared at him, processing. The man I'd been falling for, the one who made terrible puns and always ordered too much food and remembered every detail of every story I told him, was a billionaire. A famous billionaire. A billionaire my sister had been obsessing over since his first magazine cover. Does this change things? He'd asked, his voice small in a way that didn't match his net worth. I'd thought about it. Really thought about it. Do you still want to hear about my day? Even when it's just me expressing anal glands and cleaning up after incontinent dogs? He'd smiled, relief flooding his features. Especially then. Then no. It doesn't change things. That was 2 years ago. We'd kept our relationship private, partly because Marcus valued his personal life fiercely and partly because I wasn't ready for the scrutiny. My family didn't know. My friends didn't know. As far as anyone was concerned, I was still single, still struggling, still the family disappointment who couldn't get her life together. Marcus proposed 6 months ago, on the roof of the Brooklyn brownstone he'd bought specifically because it was 3 blocks from the laundromat where we met. He'd strung up lights, ordered Thai food from our favorite place, and gotten down on one knee with a ring that probably cost more than my parents' house. I said yes before he finished asking. We'd planned to tell everyone soon. We'd planned a lot of things. But then Brittany announced her engagement to Connor, and suddenly everything in my family revolved around her, again, and I kept finding reasons to wait. Until today, when I discovered she'd emptied my wedding fund. The kitchen had descended into chaos. Brittany was scrolling frantically through her phone, pulling up photos of Marcus Webb and comparing them to the contact picture on my screen. This has to be fake. You photoshopped this. You're playing some sick joke. Why would I photoshop a text message, Brittany? Because you're jealous? You've always been jealous of me. Of my success, my relationship, my life. And now you remaking up some fantasy about dating Marcus Webb because you can't handle that I'm getting married first. My mother was clutching her chest like she might faint. My father had set down his coffee and was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before, something between disbelief and dawning horror. Megan, he said slowly, if this is true, why didn't you tell us? When exactly was I supposed to tell you? Between Brittany's engagement announcement and her bridal shower planning? During one of our family dinners where you spend 3 hours discussing her wedding colors? Maybe during the conversation where you all decided to give her my wedding fund without even asking me. We didn't think you'd need it, Mom said weakly. You never bring anyone around. You assumed I was going to die alone, so you gave my money to the daughter who actually mattered. Megan, wait, Dad started. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, everything okay? Driver says we need to leave in 20 if we're going to make our reservation. I typed back, change of plans. Slight family emergency. Can you come to my parents' house in Westchester? I think it's time they met you. His response was immediate, on my way. Love you. I looked up at my family. He'll be here in about 40 minutes. Try to compose yourselves. The next 40 minutes were the longest of my life. Brittany oscillated between denial, accusation, and desperate strategizing. Okay, let's say this is real. Which it isn't. But if it is, you have to let me meet him properly. I can't have him seeing me like this. I need to change. Mom, do I have anything here that's, Brittany, he's coming to meet me. Your outfit isn't really the priority. You don't understand. She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my skin. I've been trying to get into his circle for years. I went to 3 tech conferences specifically because he was rumored to attend. I donated to his charity. I applied for a job at Nexus just to get close to him. And you're telling me you've been dating him this whole time and never said anything? Why would I tell you? So you could try to steal him like you stole everything else? I never stole anything from you. My prom dress. My first car, when you crashed yours and Mom gave you mine. My college fund, half of which went to your sorority fees. And now my wedding fund. I pulled my arm free. You've been taking things from me our entire lives, Brittany. The only reason you don't see it is because everyone told you it was normal. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. They'd always facilitated Brittany's entitlement, always justified it as supporting her potential, while telling me to be more understanding. Now, for the first time, they seemed to realize what they'd created. Sweetheart, Mom said carefully, maybe we haven't always been fair. Maybe, but this isn't about fairness. This is about family. If you're really engaged to Marcus Webb, then we should be celebrating together. We should be united. United. Right. I laughed bitterly. Where was unity when you zeroed out my account this morning? Where was family when you decided I didn't deserve the same support as Brittany? Before anyone could respond, the doorbell rang. Everyone froze. I'll get it, I said. Marcus stood on my parents' porch looking like something out of a magazine, because he literally was something out of magazines. He'd changed out of his casual clothes into a perfectly tailored blazer over a dark sweater, the kind of effortless elegance that came from having a stylist on retainer. But his smile when he saw me was pure Marcus, warm, slightly crooked, and entirely focused on me. Hey, you. He pulled me into a hug. You sounded stressed. Everything okay? Not even a little bit. But it will be. I took his hand. Ready to meet my family? I've been ready for 2 years. You're the one who kept postponing. I know. I'm sorry. I was scared, I think, that they'd ruin this somehow. He squeezed my fingers. They can't ruin anything. Whatever happens in there, we leave together. Deal? Deal. We walked into the kitchen together, and I watched my family's faces transform. My mother looked like she might actually faint this time. My father had risen from his chair, his businessman instincts kicking in, trying to figure out how to handle a situation far beyond his usual dealings. And Brittany had plastered on her brightest smile, her competition smile, the one she used when she wanted something badly. You must be Marcus, she said, stepping forward with her hand extended. I'm Brittany, Megan's sister. I've heard so much about you. Well, read so much about you, I should say. Your work with Nexus is absolutely fascinating. I actually applied for a position in your marketing division last year, I remember, Marcus said pleasantly. Your application was rejected. Brittany's smile flickered. What? HR flagged it because you listed meeting the CEO as your primary career goal in the cover letter. We have pretty strict policies about that sort of thing. He turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan, it's nice to finally meet you. Megan's told me a lot about you. She has? Mom's voice came out as a squeak. Of course. Though I have to admit, I was hoping our first meeting would be under better circumstances. He glanced at me. Megan mentioned something about her wedding fund? The room went very, very still. There was a misunderstanding, Dad said quickly. Family finances, you know how it is. We were actually just discussing how to resolve. Mr. Sullivan, I'm going to stop you there. Marcus's voice was still pleasant, but there was steel underneath it. I built a $34 billion company. I know when someone's trying to spin a situation. Your daughter told me what happened, and I'd appreciate honesty rather than damage control. Dad's mouth opened and closed. He wasn't used to being called out, especially not in his own house. We made a mistake, Mom said finally. We gave Brittany money that belonged to Megan. We shouldn't have done it. Why did you? The question hung in the air. It was the question I'd been asking my whole life, the one no one had ever answered honestly. Brittany broke the silence. Because Megan never seemed to want anything. She never asked for help. She never talked about her plans. She never brought anyone home or told us about her life. How were we supposed to know she gestured vaguely at Marcus, doing this? So because I didn't broadcast my successes, I didn't deserve support. I shook my head. Brittany, you've announced every achievement since your first spelling bee trophy. I learned early that there wasn't room for both of us to be celebrated, so I stopped trying. That doesn't mean I stopped achieving. It means I stopped telling you about it. What else haven't you told us? Dad asked quietly. I looked at him, at the father who attended every one of Brittany's recitals but missed my college graduation because she had a cold and needed someone home. At the man who funded her unpaid internships while telling me to figure it out when I needed help with tuition. At the parent who written me off as a failure without ever asking what success looked like to me. I graduated summa cum laude. I've been promoted twice in the last 3 years. I volunteer at an animal rescue every weekend and I've fostered 17 cats and dogs. I've been learning Spanish and I'm almost fluent. I make the best chocolate chip cookies in Brooklyn, according to Marcus's entire executive team. And I've been in love with an incredible man for 2 years, planning a future with him, without once feeling the need to turn it into a family performance. I took a breath. Those are the things you don't know. Not because I was hiding them, but because you never asked. The silence stretched. Marcus spoke first. For what it's worth, I didn't come here to cause problems. I love Megan. I've asked her to marry me, and she said yes, and that's happening regardless of anyone's blessing. But she wanted you to be part of our lives, and I want her to have that. So I'm hoping we can find a way forward. Brittany made one last attempt. Marcus, I feel like we got off on the wrong foot. Maybe we could have dinner sometime, just to, his voice was firm. I'm marrying your sister. The one you've apparently been taking things from your entire lives. I'm not interested in being friends with someone who treats the woman I love like she doesn't matter. Brittany's face crumpled. For once in her life, she had absolutely nothing to say. The conversation that followed was painful but necessary. My parents apologized, not completely, but they tried. They agreed to replace my wedding fund, though Marcus insisted it wasn't necessary. Keep it, he told them. Give it to charity. Consider it a chance to do the right thing for once. Brittany stayed silent through most of it, occasionally glaring at me with an expression that mixed resentment with something newer, the dawning realization that the sister she dismissed might have been the wrong one to underestimate. Before we left, she pulled me aside. I don't understand, she said, her voice small. Why didn't you ever fight back? All those years. Why did you just let me take things? I considered the question. Because fighting you meant fighting Mom and Dad too. And I didn't have the energy. It was easier to build my own life somewhere they couldn't touch. And now you have everything. The perfect relationship. The billionaire fiancé. The happy ending. I don't have everything, Brittany. I have a man who loves me and a career I'm proud of and a life I built myself. That's not everything. That's enough. Brittany. It seems like more than enough from where I'm standing. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and felt something I hadn't expected, pity. You know what the difference between us is? You spent your whole life trying to win. I spent mine trying to find joy. You ended up with a vision board full of strangers you wanted to become. I ended up with a guy I met at a laundromat who makes me laugh every day. I touched her arm, almost gently. Maybe stop competing long enough to figure out what actually makes you happy. The wedding fund, Connor, the career, are any of those things actually what you want? Or are they just what winning looks like? She didn't answer. I didn't expect her to. Marcus and I made it to dinner with his parents, though we were late enough that his mother had started stress ordering appetizers. They heard an abbreviated version of the evening's events and welcomed me with the warmth I always hoped to get from my own family. You did well, Marcus said later, as the jet carried us back to Manhattan. Standing up for yourself like that. I had backup. I leaned into him. Pretty intimidating backup. I didn't do anything. That was all you. You showed up. That was everything. He kissed the top of my head. I'll always show up. That's the deal. Through the window, the city lights glittered below us. Somewhere down there was my parents' house, my sister's resentment, my complicated history with a family that had never quite seen me. And somewhere down there was the laundromat where a broken washing machine had changed my life. Marcus? Yeah? Thank you for not caring who I was. He pulled me closer. Thank you for not caring who I was. We landed at the private airfield as the sun set over Manhattan. His driver was waiting. Tomorrow there would be wedding planning and family dynamics and 1,000 complicated decisions. But tonight, there was just us, two people who'd found each other in the most ordinary way, building an extraordinary life together, one laundry cycle at a time. They say money can't buy happiness, but I've learned something more nuanced. Money can't buy love, but it can certainly reveal who really loved you all along. My family saw a billionaire and suddenly wanted to be part of my life. Marcus saw me folding towels at 11 p.m. and wanted to know my story. The difference tells you everything you need to know about what matters, and who doesn't.